Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is episode 2 of On the Fence. This is Garrett Schexnayder,
And this is Big Don.
and we are super excited to be back. First, I want to apologize for the delay in having the second episode take so long. It's a busy time of year, but we're here, and we're going to try and crank out 2 episodes tonight. A couple things I want to go over real quick. We forgot to do it the first episode, but our buddy Aaron Davis is in the booth. He's running the audio equipment, so this wouldn't be possible without him. So a huge thank you to him. And then I also want to congratulate Dakota Holloway on winning the giveaway we had a few weeks back. Hopefully, Dakota, if you're listening, we'll have everything for you by Friday. And the last thing, Southeastern's Lion Connected program is putting on a fun run in support of students with intellectual disabilities. It's going to be a $20 registration fee up until November 15th, and you get a T-shirt with your early registration, and it's $25 after that. But it's going to be on 11/21 from 3 to 6 p.m., which is right before the Southeastern versus Nichols game. So if you guys can make that, that'd be awesome.
All right, so tonight we're going to talk about a couple of controversial cases that's taking place. One being the Botham Jean case in Dallas. Also, the unfortunate incident involving Atatiana Jefferson. We're also going to go into detail about the St. George results. And
Epstein wasn't killed. Didn't commit suicide.
And Garrett's talking about some guy that may or may not have died in a jail cell. And,
Some guy, huh?
Some guy.
The key. He's the key.
And then we're going to wrap it up talking about the NCAA ruling, hashtag bring back NCAA football, the video game.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be, and I'm beating everybody in Online Dynasty with the poorest of teams in the world. I'm taking UMass or UTSA, to Power 5 glory. I'm going to be the Nick Saban of online NCAA
You can't play on
football.
rookie doing that, though.
Oh, no, man. Look, Heisman all the way. Be coming in with a power spread offense. It's going to be a dope time. All my receivers running 4.2 40s. You know what I mean? The best supplements money can buy, best cheerleaders, boosters, all of that. I want all the infractions, all the glory.
All right, so forgive me if I'm saying his name wrong, but Botham Jean was killed in his own home by a Dallas officer, Amber Guygere.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying any of those wrong, I apologize. So give us a quick rundown of the story. You're a little bit more knowledgeable on it. You followed it more than I have.
Yeah, so basically, Botham Jean, however you pronounce the last name, he was a young businessman in his late 20s in the Dallas area, was a guy who was active in the community, active in his church. Basically, one night he was sitting in his living room area in his apartment, and Amber Guygere, who was a member of the DPD, I believe she either had just got off of work or was off. Either way, she was off duty at this point in the evening. She walked into
His house.
Yeah, his house and or broken into, however you want to frame it or say it, and shot him point blank range. And basically, at that point in time, the two sides of the conversation was you had people saying she mistakenly walked into the wrong apartment, and you had people saying that she broke into the apartment.
Do you know that there were any evidence of, forced intrusion? Or?
So apparently this apartment complex, you needed security key cards to get in and out.
Mm-hmm.
It is a similar layout. It's basically it's a high-end apartment complex, but in terms of units looking identical, you can kind of compare it to a generic college dorm.
So did she walk into the wrong building but the right room number?
Nah, like this was
or was it the same building?
Same building.
Okay, just the wrong room, right?
Yeah,
okay.
and I haven't looked at the notes in a while, so I can't remember exactly if they were on the same floor or if they were like one floor, like she
Right.
may have been a floor below or a floor above. But basically, she got deep into the apartment, into the living room area, shot him point blank range. Sorry.
just because we're at this point of the story, I've heard a few conflicting stories, but one thing that was going around was that her body armor was off in her hand, right? And that when she shot him, she didn't drop anything, but instead she drew her gun without dropping anything and held it with one hand, which is weird because going through the firearms training that I've had, whatever you have in your hands, you drop because now it's your weapon, right?
Yeah.
That's your priority. And I don't think any police department trains any other way either.
Nah.
So that was really iffy. And I don't know if that's true or not. You would know more than I would.
So from the details that I can still recall is the disconnect came that as a police officer, you have the same initial first response training as a firefighter, and those two groups have the same initial training, but not to the extent of a paramedic.
Which is eerie, isn't it?
Yeah, so she didn't administer any type of first aid, and potentially he would still be alive if she did something post, the shot going off. And first responders got there, and she still didn't do anything. On the 911 call, the first thing she said was, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job." It's also been reported that she was sexting or sending sexual text messages to a colleague or co-worker, however you want to say that. And she was kind of acting as if she didn't just kill somebody.
Well, and another thing that I want to hit on is that this man was sitting in his boxers or something eating ice cream.
Boxers,
right? in no way posing any kind of threat.
Boxers and a wife beater or a tank top,
so
if you want to say.
Even if it was her apartment, right? Let's say she walks in and this man's sitting on his couch doing the same thing. Is he a threat at this point? Yeah, he's in your house. In this theoretical.
Yeah.
Is he a threat? I mean, do you treat it that way? Because
I mean,
I don't think that'd be my first impression.
Yeah, by him sitting down, if you're standing over somebody that's sitting down.
I mean, if she'd have came in and he'd have stood up real quick,
yeah,
you might have had a little bit stronger, argument. And
yeah,
we weren't there. We'll never know this.
Yeah, but essentially, I mean, if you're standing up and somebody's sitting down, you're in a dominant position. With or without the shot, you still have the upper hand.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing she did do right, if you're gonna pull it, use it.
That's true.
But it really just boils down to the fact that she may have been sexting a coworker. The fact that.
So how would that tie into this? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, her sex, this was literally while she's in the hallway after this happened, same night, same time.
So the timing.
It'll be like if you ran over somebody puppy and
I'm gonna have to sit and watch. They have the whole trial listed online.
Yeah,
have to sit and watch the whole
it'll be like if you ran over somebody puppy and
it's gonna take a while. It's 8 hours. It's 12 8-hour segments.
It was lengthy. You know what I'm saying?
Which I mean, these cases have to be.
Because
heaven forbid, somebody do this the right way and you have to go through.
And just for the totality of everything after the case. The lead witness, who was also a young black guy who was in his early 30s, he was the next door neighbor, and his testimony basically guaranteed that she was going to get convicted and sentenced. He was killed maybe not even a full week after.
I don't think it might have been a few days.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
And the story was that several guys from North Louisiana, where medicinal marijuana is legal, drove all the way to Dallas to buy weed from him.
Yeah, I don't buy that story either.
And
because he had no prior arrest convictions or anything like that.
Yeah, and
nothing that would say that this is what that was.
Yeah, and he was a guy, ex-athlete who started up his own business, and whether he made money off of those type of dealings outside of his actual business, it's still weird for somebody to make a 4 to 6 hour drive from Alexandria, Louisiana to Dallas, Texas.
Right.
Because Texas cops and laws are on a whole nother level outside of Louisiana's. And then what we're going to end up discussing in a second was everything that happened post-conviction.
Right.
The judge playing in the hair, giving the Bible and hugging, the bailiff consoling her, and then Botham Jean's younger brother getting up and giving her a hug after his testimony, where he kind of absolved her with her words, and then the father actually saying off record to the media that he hopes she lives her best life, which ties in a whole lot of other stuff. So that's everything that I can still recollect from the case.
It's one of those cases that it came at us fast. It caused outrage quickly, and I think it's justified. You know, I don't
Yeah.
always think that. There are several cases that we can talk about in the future that such as the Ferguson case.
Yeah.
I didn't find the cop to be at fault there.
I
Maybe a little
actually agree.
a little premature,
Yeah.
maybe, but
Yeah.
in the end, I think he was justified there, and that
Yeah.
still caused outrage.
Yeah.
What I do find weird about that is that the outrage for this was nowhere near the outrage for that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? At least it
Yeah.
doesn't seem that way. Like the Black Lives Matter, Al Sharpton, they're not, where are they?
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is with Al Sharpton, and
I'm not a fan. I'll go
yeah,
ahead and say it now.
there's a lot of people.
To clarify, I'm not a fan of Al Sharpton. The Black Lives Matter movement, I think it had good people in it. I think the leaders of it were misleading people.
Yeah, well, it went from being an organic saying and a grassroots movement to becoming a political organization. And once something becomes a political organization, it's now part of the machine.
That's true.
Al Sharpton is somebody who he does things for his benefit. Like when the incident in Gina happened with the Gina 6, he disappeared when the cameras disappeared.
Right.
And just with any other case, that's why like when what happened in Baton Rouge with Alton Sterling, I did not want Al Sharpton to come down there.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's somebody that just stirs the pot straight up and down.
That case was also iffy to me. It wasn't. I didn't know enough about the case to be one way. Like the video went around, and there's the good arguments for both sides. I'm not gonna say one person was right and one was wrong because my extent of the law is not that good.
Yeah.
And being in combat situations previously, I know how hectic things can get and how soon it can happen. I only hope that if it were malintent, that God deals with that when they're ready or when He's ready.
But with the Botham Jean case, I know when it came down to the hug part, we didn't necessarily agree with that part.
Right.
And the one thing that I've been saying is that his testimony and him hugging her actually played a role in the jury giving her a 10-year sentence, and Botham Jean's Christianity was actually used against him in the sentencing because they literally said in the TV interview that they feel like if he was still alive, he would have forgave her. And the family, with the exception of the mother, the father and the brother being forgiven. So that was probably 50 to 65% of the reasoning why she only got 10 years. And I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was a murder 1 or 2 or a manslaughter. But 10 years for a life when there's people who's in jail 10 years for weed.
Right.
The difference between 499 grams and 500 grams is life. You know what I'm saying?
So going to the hug, you're not wrong as to the role it played in the sentencing. To hit on the verdict first, I also think 10 years is a slap in the face to the victim and their family.
Yeah.
Although they said they felt differently. It's hard with these cases because what the law is supposed to do in the legislative system, you have to find cases that are very similar to these, and the rulings have to be similar. This case is not like anything I've ever seen. Not that I studied law that much.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's another case to fall back on it.
So the one case that comes to mind is there was one. It was a brown cop. I can't tell you what his actual ethnicity is, but I can tell you that he's a black man.
Right.
And it was a white lady who was either from Australia or from France, and he was on duty, and a similar situation happened, and minimum he got 12 to 15 years.
I got you.
So a similar precedent, but not an exact precedent, was kind of set, and she still got the lesser.
So I'm going to throw a few stats out right here that are kind of off topic, but a lot of people aren't going to know this. A black man who kills a white woman is almost 10 times as likely to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
A white person to kill a black man is not as likely. A black serial killer is more likely to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
White serial killers are more than likely to spend the rest of their life in jail.
Yep.
So the system is flawed, at least in the way it's applied. And that's something we need to keep focused on. That's something people need to understand.
Yeah.
So we can agree there. The 10 years, like I said, at the very least, she gets manslaughter, right? And she's found guilty. I still think that's a 15-year.
Yeah, well, the way it works is with her being her being her first offense, she actually can get out within the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, that you got good time to go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in all actuality, it's not even going to be a 10-year.
No, it might
sentence
be.
that she
It might be
served.
5 at the most.
Yeah. But it's one of those deals where it reaffirmed for a lot of people that a white life matters more than a black life.
Yeah. Like I said, with the stats that I just said.
Yeah, and then on top of that, to go.
Because I used to not believe that,
Yeah.
But I was a criminal justice major originally, and this is something we hit on really hard in class. The system is flawed.
Yeah, and the one quote that I always use is the old Lyndon B. Johnson quote when he was like, "I tell you what's at the bottom of it. If you can get the lowest white man to believe that he's still better than the best black man, you can get him to do whatever you want. He even go in his pocket, give you his last dollar." And that's something that I used to preach when I was working with kids all the time.
Yeah.
If you're poor, you're not gonna get that second opportunity. But if you're a poor white kid, you get that slim chance that this black kid not gonna get.
Yeah.
But yeah, the hug was just, to me, I didn't like it. It struck a nerve.
So I think the brother was well within his means to do that. I think that's his right. And if that's his belief, that's how he feels. I personally believe that if that's what brings him peace, and I know as a Christian that's something we preach on a lot, is forgiveness and things like that. But it's not just Christianity. Buddhists believe the same thing. There are Chinese proverbs about the same thing, and forgiveness is a vital aspect of life.
Yeah.
I don't view that as why Amber only got a 10-year sentence.
Yeah.
I think that is a failure on the judicial system. The jury and the courts failed the black community, essentially. Like I said, I think it was inappropriate for the judge to give the hug because of the position that she's in, right?
Yeah.
She can feel emotion. She can feel empathy. That's fine. I think physical connection is a little too much because, like I said, the role she played.
Yeah. And the same thing with the bailiff, and to take it a step. And the big thing is, like I said, with the hug, it's not fair to any one person. But like when I step outside my doorstep every day, I understand that I represent every young black man under 35 to everybody. So like anything I do and don't do, anything I say and don't say, it holds more weight. And in that moment, like if I was him, I wouldn't have done it because you're basically showing everybody like you've already forgiven them. And then, like I said, the jury made they said that played a role in it as well. And I mean the 10-year a 10-year murder sentence is extremely light. So like I said, that's just something about that case. I won't ever get.
I think it needs to be talked about. I personally think that the only way out of these situations is to quit viewing people as a collective, which a lot of people disagree with. A lot of our social policies, our financial policies, it's not about that, right? A lot of it looks at your ethnicity, your background, and things like that, and it's like, don't view people like that. View that person for who that person is, right?
Yeah.
Hard to do, but as a nation, as a planet, we have to.
Yeah.
I can't look at you and base the kind of character you on because of a past experience I had with somebody who might be in similar in stature, similar in color, similar in race or ethnicity, or even religion.
And that's something we all do. But with between the bailiff and the judge, there's some people that actually said that that's an example of classic slavery conditioning, and to an extent, it makes sense. That's just like with the new Harriet Tubman movie that's coming out. There's a lot of people, like, I ain't gonna lie, like, I ain't gonna go see it because they have what's the quote unquote white savior. Yeah. They introduced a black villain that didn't exist in real life just to have the white guy swoop in and save him. And it's always, we gotta protect the little pretty white girl like that. So it's basically people took the bailiff and the judge, that act like it was symbolic of a slave saying, "Yes, master, you still a good master." You know what I'm saying?
I don't know as much about it, to be honest. Talk about where she held her hair for her. Is that
Yeah,
what-
like she was combing her hair. The
Yeah.
bailiff was combing her hair.
I won't. I think that's a long stretch, to be honest. As far as we know, the thin blue line goes. It's not very thin. It's thick. It covers a lot of people.
Yeah.
It could have been that. You know what I mean? It's the same system. They're in the same system.
Yeah. But
I'm not saying it's not what you're
no,
saying.
no, but the thing is too is, her as a black woman that's a cop, she has to she gets reminded of it on both sides.
Right.
So it's like, so why even put yourself in a position? Because I've never seen an instance where the defendant was being consoled by members of the court, because essentially you're a part of the state that's building the case.
And I still say I think it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
Much like the judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a stretch, but I'm not going to say one way or another. I don't know anybody's intent, which is like when you look at like first-degree murder charges, first degree is hard to get because intent is hard to prove in court. If it's hard to prove in court, it's hard to prove anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I hope everybody not gets over. I don't hope they get over it, but I hope the family finds peace. Yeah. I hope Guygere serves her sentence. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things where it's like,
I mean, it's one of those things where like she's only 31 or 32, so she's young.
Gonna have the rest of her life.
Yeah, like she literally there's real and in essence there's really nothing that she's not really being penalized when she gets out. She's have a whole life ahead of her.
I just hope that we weren't there. You know what I'm saying? We as much as people want to say this is definite or that is definite, I hope that people get what they deserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's say she did do it and she regrets it, and that later on down the line, she's like, I really am sorry for what I did. I served my sentence. I'm trying to change. It's something I have to carry with me for the rest of my life. I don't know if she's remorseful. I don't know if she's regretful or anything like that. I don't even know if she did it on purpose. Yeah. I can't make that sentiment, because it's outside looking in.
Right.
We've all been in situations where, I did this, but I did it because of this.
Right.
I didn't want to do it. I don't know.
But I think whatever happens with the Jefferson case, that's either going to make the fallout from this case either better or worse.
Right.
Because like it's not even a scab yet. Like it's still like a wound that's still kind of healing. And then for what happened with Jefferson.
Right. So going into that, this was a couple weeks ago. Is that correct?
Earlier. I think earlier this month. Yeah. Well, October. Yeah.
So there was another case it's very similar. Miss Jefferson was at our home in the Fort Worth area, and apparently her door had been open, and her neighbor got concerned and called the cops. When the cops got there, it was on CBS they referred it as tactically prepared cops.
Yeah.
I don't know why a door being open would dictate that. Protocol is very confusing in a lot of places. It's different. It's always changing. I have a lot of questions about that, but I feel bad for all the people who felt victimized from the Guygere case and the Jean case, who now have to endure what might happen in this case.
Yeah.
One of two things I think can happen. Either the judicial system learns from the previous case and is like, that wasn't right. But you never know how these court cases are going to go.
The jury selection.
The jury selection, the cop could get off scot-free here. The cops may not have even been in the wrong, I haven't read that far into it.
Basically, so a report that came out the day after, because it went from her being unarmed to her pointing a gun at one of the cops.
So lots of changing.
But the thing was, there haven't been any reports as of yet that I'm aware of that where the cops announced their presence and said who they were. For all intents and purposes, she could have thought that she was about to be burglarized by somebody.
Right.
So whether she did pull out a gun or not, it's her right as a citizen to protect herself.
I agree completely.
Even if you look at the actual amendment, it's to protect yourself from a tyrannical government.
Of course, yeah.
So
I'm pretty big on that one.
Right, you know what I mean? Because even like I said before we start recording, there's a video of a white lady at a town hall meeting where she said that a similar thing happened to her. Her back door was open because she had let her dog out, and a neighbor was concerned and called, and cops was swooping around her house, and she had to yell out and say who's there, and still didn't hear anything. And then after everything went down, they finally announced their presence, and she says that if she wasn't a small white lady, she would have got shot.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I view that in the same light as cops using unmarked or ghost marked cars to try to get somebody for a speeding ticket.
Right.
Like, just you acknowledging your presence makes things not happen. So like if you're pulling up on a house and you state who you are, that now puts all the weight on the people that you're there for.
Right.
If they do something stupid, then you're in your God-given right to do what you need to do,
Right.
not only to do your job safe, but to get back home the way that you went to your job.
There was something similar happened in, I think it was Georgia, and this is 2013, 2014, so it's been some time. But they did a no-knock raid on this guy's house. They busted in. The guy was like, "What are you all doing?" He shot a cop.
I remember that case. Yeah.
And they tried to give him life in prison for it. And he's like, "You had the wrong house," which was the first problem. And he's like, "I have a right to defend myself in my house. You know, you came in here armed. I didn't know who you were. You just broke down my door, and it was forced entry."
Right.
So yeah, the cops admitted to having the wrong house, and essentially he got off. And unfortunately, to the officer that was killed, you know, that's a mistake on probably his department's end.
Yeah, and that's one of the situations where the department's going to give the family a nice settlement.
And if that man, I think he was a white man, had he been black, I don't know that would have turned out the same way.
Oh no, he would have got killed.
Probably.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And I hate like coming across as biased, but it's like I've been in situations where I was like, you know,
and at some point, people have to acknowledge that this happens, you know?
Yeah.
I know several white people who would just turn a blind eye to it. And they'll be like, "No, our judicial system doesn't work that way." It's like
the only white people who can like get an idea of what it's like, or like basically like larger white guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if anybody didn't know you, like you can come across as intimidating because you're reserved. You know what I'm saying?
So
you're a muscular guy with a beard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like so that's the whole deal.
I got arrested in New Orleans one night. I had just left Bourbon Street, which I was DDing. I didn't drink any, but he knew where I was leaving from. What happened was I was trying to get back on the interstate and I missed the median, so I turned too soon. I went on the wrong way in one way, and so I pulled to the side. I turned around, pulled to the side, and he comes out. He asks, license, registration, proof of insurance. I give him all that, and I knew as he was running my numbers, when he comes back, he's going to ask me to step out the car. We're going to do some sobriety tests. I'll pass it. I'll be on my way. And it'll be good to go. Well, he came back and he was like, "Sir, can you step out of your car?" Absolutely, And like I said, when I get pulled over, I didn't get nervous. I used to not get nervous until this happened. But I'm preparing for a sobriety check, and he's like, "Sir, can you put your hands behind your back?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Why?" And I guess that hesitation like made him kind of grab me and like throw me against. And I was like, he was a smaller guy. And I was like, I'm assuming I appeared threatening, and that
that's what it
when
was.
I questioned him, I turned around. I was like, why? Because I didn't know what I was being arrested for.
Right.
Turns out my license had been suspended, so the arrest was justified. Because you can technically get pulled over and arrested for any kind of traffic violation. If they wanted to bring you to jail for a 5-mile-an-hour speeding ticket, they could do it.
Right.
But yeah, so I can understand how that, you know what I mean?
And that's the scary part is if a cop is smaller in stature, or if they're a female, or if they have a God complex, those are the worst 3 types of cops to have out on the street.
And there's a lot of it.
Because a cop that's 5 foot nothing, 100 pound nothing, they're going to be intimidated by you.
Yeah.
A female cop is going to feel like she has to go an extra step if she's dealing with men.
Right.
And by default, if you're black or brown, just because of media coverage, stereotypes, and the like, you know what I'm saying? Or if you're black, white, yellow, or brown, and you live in the wrong zip code.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of prejudice based on color, as well as what's in your bank account.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I really feel bad for Jefferson's 8-year-old nephew because
I feel bad for every family member involved in both of these cases.
Yeah.
And my main priority is that I hope they all find the peace that they need.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the day, that's what I want more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know I kind of got choppy on the last little bit. But.
Yeah. Because I saw a report where like the 8-year-old's been dealing with bad PTSD since the incident.
Yeah, that's
he
rough.
hasn't been talking, and he was real close.
Yeah.
To her too.
And
so.
PTSD, being a former veteran or being a veteran of a foreign war, it takes its toll on grown men. I can only imagine on an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, man, it's just hopefully they get the right means of help for them and help them process that and everything else. So.
Yep. Yeah. So another thing that you believe has a racial divide. I'm gonna go ahead and clarify now. I don't have any idea what this is about. Like I said, only from your snippets on Facebook do I understand kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
But stop me when I start falling off from the topic.
Yeah.
St. George is a community within the Baton Rouge area, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And they all voted. It is primarily white.
It is
now.
It's like the village of St. George or the proposed city of St. George is about, I'm going to say, at least 80% white, at least.
Now, before it split, it had a few low-income housing areas. Is that right?
It had low-income neighborhoods.
Which were primarily
black and brown.
Okay. And then St. George wanted to split from the Baton Rouge system. Is that correct?
Yeah, and start their own city, yeah.
Okay, so what drove this? This has been going on for years, hasn't it? Maybe decades.
I'm gonna say this is 2019. This has been a thing at least publicly. This has been a thing since 2014. This has probably been brewing at least since some point between 2010 to 2012.
Okay,
and that's since I've been aware of it since like 2013, 2014. Right. That's how long I've been paying attention.
I want to say
it.
I've had a teacher or a professor who was saying it's gone on longer than that because this isn't the first time they voted on it.
No, they've tried for a long time and they were finally successful. There's been other communities that's broken off of Baton Rouge over the years. Like growing up, Zachary.
I was gonna say Central. Central's not there.
Central did too. So what Zachary did, they broke off and formed their own school district.
Right.
That's still part of EBR Parish.
Yeah.
But just not EBR schools. Central, was basically a small town. It was a part of Baton Rouge, but the only reason why I didn't agree with it is because it's money that's being pulled away from Baton Rouge, but they incorporated because it made sense for them. Like they might as well just be their own city because it's kind of like how small towns in this parish is. Like it's not acknowledged on the map and it may not be incorporated, but people like, nah, you stay in such and such. Like, you know what I'm saying? With St. George, the village of St. George is a subdivision in Baton Rouge. The more affluent people stay on this part of the town. Tax revenue has gone towards developing this side of town. It's no secret that the north side of the city has no resources. Earl K. Long, which was the charity hospital, closed down for asbestos. It's not so much on the north side of the city. It's further down Airline, but Women's Hospital actually closed and moved further away. So if you're on the north side of the city, you can't even take that 5 to 10 minute drive down Airline. You got to go probably all the way to Mid-City or whatever the closest medical facility is. So I've been saying for the past 5 years or so, that I feel like it's legislated white flight and it's basically just affluent white people not wanting to share their revenue.
Okay.
Even the way that the city lines were drawn, they legitimately cut out poor
those
neighborhoods.
Low-income areas.
Yeah, so it's like
that. I did notice that because I saw the map you shared, and it was right where the cutoffs were, and almost every side was some kind of either low-income housing area or maybe not as a developed business kind of district.
Yeah, the best way I could describe it is it's like if you had one of those like half and half pizzas and like for kicks and giggles, we say one side was an Hawaiian pizza, so you had like little slices of pepperoni and pineapples. Not everybody's a huge pineapple cat,
right.
You know what I'm saying? And the other half was pepperoni. What you did was you cut the good parts of the Hawaiian pizza that didn't have any pineapple toppings,
Right.
and you kept everything pepperoni based on your side.
It's a pretty good analogy.
And a lot of the businesses didn't want to be in St. George. There were some people that moved their businesses to Baton Rouge for strategic reasons, and you even had people within that community. There's people I grew up with that live in that area, and they still, like one guy especially, like he still feels passionate about it. But the whole deal is, I would have been fine with them breaking off. That's what you want to do, cool. But you showed that we
they
were
purposely
all
broke
right.
off.
Yeah, because the initial line included those poor neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So you kept just enough black people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it's going to be hard for them to move in because, you know, like I talk about all the time, redlining is still a thing. So it's going to be hard for them to move on that side of town. Baton Rouge literally has paid for St. George to be developed. And now they're trying to take the money and run. It's going to change the way both casinos can operate. Like LeBeur's is on that side, but the Bell isn't. So now, like, the boat may actually have to go out into the river now. That boat hasn't been in the water for God knows how long.
Right.
Is it going to be able to stay up? My childhood neighborhood is actually 5 to 8 minutes away from St. George. So it's not like I grew up in a rough part of the city. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I used to jokingly tell people I grew up on the white side of Florida Boulevard. And that's something a lot of people don't understand.
I've heard you say that a lot.
Florida Boulevard segregates the city. Most of the black population is on the north side. And then when you come to the southern part of the city, LSU segregates the rest of it.
Right.
So you got the bottom and the top. And then if you go around the opposite part of Death Valley, you're at LSU Lakes. So it's predominantly white. So I won't ever agree with, and then the thing with St. George, the entire city did not get to vote on it. So they actually fixed it up some type of way to where only certain people got to vote on it. Not even everybody that's going to be living in St. George couldn't even vote on it.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like, it's a lot of things, you know what I'm saying, that's at play when it comes to Baton Rouge, and there's a lot of powers that be, and Baton Rouge is going to probably almost always be segregated by money and skin color.
Yeah.
But that's why I've been in huge opposition for St. George. Like, I've literally been preaching the same thing for 5.5 years now.
Yeah, this is not the first time I've heard you mention it. Outside looking in, it seems like, because I'm not going to say everybody who voted yes for this is some kind of, white flight.
No, it was
racist.
good intentions.
Yeah. It seems like there are two ways to look at this. One, you've got the communal aspect of things, like the view. You're taking money away from Baton Rouge. You cut off the low income areas, and that's one side. And the other side, it seems like it's more of an individualistic. I think St. George is going to have better school systems.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Had they not cut off those low income areas could have thrived because of the new school system.
Yeah, because to add on, if you go to New Orleans, because of everything post-Katrina, New Orleans East is now a high crime area. They did not build it back up after the storm. Car break-ins happen all across the city. A group of people, I'm not about handouts, I'm about a hand up. A group of people that you don't give a hand up to today may be somebody that come take what's off your plate tomorrow.
Right.
So just because a zip code cannot keep you safe, an imaginary boundary line cannot keep you safe. And you just told a whole group of people that they're not good enough to be in your city. And the people who voted yes, there's a good bit of them that voted with the idea of, I'm doing what's best for my family, what's best for my children.
Best, and I think also when they vote, it's like, well, now my local tax money goes to my community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the ill intent was there for a lot of people, although it may be in the minds of some. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think when we come to talk about this, and me and you do a good job of this, we always have,
Right.
We've disagreed on a couple subjects already. But we've got to be able to talk to each other without thinking that there's malintent.
Yeah, there's no
behind
fire
our
and
ideas.
brimstone, no mother F you, and this, that, and the other. But the people who voted, I'm going to say at least 60% of them voted with good intentions for themselves and their family. But the other 40%, as well as the people that orchestrated the whole thing, it was all about keeping a green piece of paper in white pockets. I hate saying it like that, but I mean, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
If you go back over the last 30, 40 years of Baton Rouge's history, the prominent area used to be near the Cox Communication Building. That was Bar Marche Mall back in the 80s, early 90s, before I was even thought of. Going back to the 70s, like that was the spot. Business was booming. You fast forward to when I was a kid in the early 2000s, nickname was Murder Mall City, and it had been a nickname for 20 years. And Cortana Mall sucked off the life from that part of the city. Then when the new mall came out, Mall, Louisiana, as newer parts of the city develop, we forget about the older parts. So like I said, there are people that voted for it that they well-intentioned. Right. But my whole thought process is if you apply pressure on elected officials, if people are more active out in the community, lobbying, deciding to run for something themselves, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's because what's going to happen 50 years from now when there's issues in St. George and then there's another community that wants to break off. And then St. George is not going to be an overnight deal. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
They're fortunate enough that they already have a fire department inside St. George, but they still have to build up, assuming it sticks and they don't take it back. Eventually, they're going to have to build up their own police force. As of right now, if St. George was to become official tomorrow, they would have to depend on East Baton Rouge Sheriff to enforce everything. Right. So you're going to tax the whole structure.
So now, they won't get their own sheriff, though.
No, they're still a part of East Baton Rouge.
Right, okay.
But that area already, most of that area was already, the district lines are so crazy in Baton Rouge. My childhood neighborhood.
Will they get their own police force, or is that also?
They have to. They have to get their own city force.
It'll probably be like a subdivision or something like that, right?
Because like my old childhood neighborhood was circled by 3 main roads in Baton Rouge. My neighborhood was underneath one of the sheriff office substations. But if I went to one of the if I hit Sherwood Boulevard, of course, one of those main roads, it was under BRPD. But my neighborhood was encased in Baton Rouge. Okay. You see what I'm saying? So with St. George, like, part of it was already covered, but now they have to go and tax EBR sheriff even more while building all of that up. Right. Now, for at least the next 5 to 10 years, are they going to have enough money for infrastructure? It's going to affect the school district in line. So you're going to be a part of EBR parish schools, but are your kids still going to have access to go to some of the schools that they were going to? You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of things that's going on. And I don't see it being, I see it being a very crappy Band-Aid over like a buckshot wound, you know what I'm saying?
I got you. You made good points. And like I said, you being from the area, you know a little bit more about it. When this airs, I just want, like I said, more than anything, for people to be able to talk about these things without thinking people mean harm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that goes for a lot of different topics. That can go from capitalism, socialism, communism. You know, people have their beliefs, and we've got to get back to where we can have these conversations, which is the whole purpose of this podcast.
Right.
To where we can discuss ideologies and thoughts with each other, you know, without wanting to go at each other's throats. You know.
Right.
I'm fat anyway. I'm not. I ain't trying to sweat.
Nah, the worst thing that we were taught was never talk about politics or religion.
I think that's the worst rule we've ever had.
We should have been taught to talk about it without putting the emotion behind it.
Exactly.
Because when I was still in the education system, the one thing I used to try to do was I was mindful about not teaching the emotion behind history, because there's a lot of things that happen that can cause you to get emotional.
Oh, of course.
You know, so that's like a Jewish teacher, you teaching the Holocaust, try to keep the emotion out of it. Somebody look like me, if I'm talking about civil rights movement or slavery or sharecropping, keep the emotion out of it. For an extremely liberal woman talking about women's rights, trying to keep the emotion out of it, because you force kids to soak up that emotion along with the fact, and they already are sponges of what they're hearing at home. I used to tell people all the time, like when I was coaching, I can coach against anything except the dinner table.
Right.
You know, so because the way we interact with our discussions, the next generation is watching. Yeah. So 20 years from now, when people are cursing each other out on town hall debates on TV, it's our fault for not teaching the right way to have a discourse.
And we're seeing a lot of that now. I think that's one of the reasons Trump got elected. And I'm not a Trump fan. I'm going to say that now. You know, I grew up probably conservative in a conservative family. Yeah. I'm no longer a Republican. I identify as a libertarian, which I believe you do too. Yeah. So it's what drove him to get elected, because people are so tired of getting pushed around and told that they have to believe this, they have to be offended by this.
Yeah.
And they're like, no.
Nah,
You can't tell me what I'm supposed to be offended about.
It was genius of him because he played on people emotions, and he played on people belief. He preyed on people belief systems, and he stirred the pot in a lot of areas. That's the reason why I didn't support him getting elected, because he made everything worse in order to get elected.
And he runs his entire platform is emotionally driven.
He fearmongers.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not absolving
that, and he. Can we get him off Twitter? Can we please get him off Twitter?
That ain't gonna happen.
I know.
But and I'm not absolving the left, because they fearmonger even more so, if not worse. But I'd rather have Trump in office than Mike Pence. I feel like I feel like Mike Pence would be.
I'm gonna go. I don't really know too much about his policies. And I know, like, there's been this whole, he's this, he believes in conversion therapy for gay people. I'm just like, I've tried to find every speech that I could on him, and you're right. He doesn't agree with gay marriage, and if that's your argument with him, and not you personally, but if that's somebody's argument with him, that's fine. But let's make this to where we can actually talk about it with what he actually believes, right?
Yeah.
Christians in general would be considered anti-LGBT.
Yeah.
That's not them being hateful necessarily. Now, there are people who are hateful to gay people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm saying if a Christian comes out and says, I don't agree with this, that doesn't mean they hate you as a person. That doesn't mean they're denying your existence.
Right.
They're saying this is what they believe.
Yeah.
And they can believe this without putting down on you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Because a true Christian
hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yeah, basically, saying they accept everybody for who they are.
Exactly.
Not so much tolerating, but accepting, while, I don't really get with that part, you know what I mean?
On the flip side, if you're a part of the LGBT community and you think just because somebody's a Christian that they're a bad person, you're no better than who you think they are.
But, sometimes you become what you hate. As far as the Mike Pence thing goes, like a gut feeling, like it's something in my gut. It don't he don't sit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
I mean, I don't know. I think Pence is less likely to be embarrassing on a national stage.
Yeah.
I think he's more traditionally conservative, so you can take that for how you want.
Yeah.
Talking politics though. Epstein.
Hey.
I am sure everybody on my Facebook feed is like, I wish this dude would quit. I'm sick of it. He doesn't do nothing but share memes about this. And I don't understand. I had somebody hit me up the other day. He's like, who's Epstein? All right, we had to have a 30-minute conversation. So a quick rundown of the story. Epstein was charged with, he owned an island, and he was flying out girls as young as 14 to this island, and it wasn't for vacation, or at least not for them.
Right.
And what was supposed to happen is he was coming up with this list of high-profile politicians and leaders and CEOs. One of which flew to this island several times was Bill Clinton. I voted for Hillary.
This is my first time hearing this.
So yeah, we're all waiting for this list to come out, and then he goes into jail, and it's a maximum security prison, and he says, they put him on suicide watch. That means he's monitored 24/7. They take everything down to his shoelaces away from him. All he has is a blanket and a bed, and I'm pretty sure then it's only like a rack. It's not an actual mattress. They come out a few days later. They say he killed himself with a blanket that is no longer than 4 feet long. Now, is that impossible? Probably not. Is that likely the story? No, because you're telling me that the cameras went down for the few moments where it took him to suffocate himself, and the medical examiner who just examined his body says that the bruises and the markings are more significant to a strangulation than they are a hanging or suicide. So rest in peace, that guy. But no, like, we were supposed to get an entire list of the biggest pedophile ring in the history of the world, possibly. At least so long as pedophilia's been a thing, because that you go far enough back.
It's a whole another discussion. Yeah. But
Epstein didn't kill himself.
I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. This is my first time hearing it. The only island I know is like the metaphorical island.
I'm a good friend, so I ain't gonna throw you under the bus. You're a liar.
Hey, allegedly, everything that was said here was allegedly.
We went over some racial division issues, the court cases, St. George and Epstein, they're all big news stories, and I'm glad we got the chance to discuss those and to pick each other's brains. It's always fun to learn and see different points of view.
Facts.
But we're going to end on a little bit of a positive note. NCAA has now approved of allowing NCAA athletes to receive endorsements from private companies. We've talked about this on a previous on our premiere episode.
Yeah.
Originally, it was only California, but now I believe the NCAA has made it.
Yeah.
It's got to be countrywide.
Yeah. All any institution underneath that governing body, and they had to, like California forced the issue because what was about to happen was you about to get a lot of blue chippers going to West Coast schools,
right?
Yeah.
And it's going to leave everybody else high and dry.
Regardless of the level, D1, 2, 3, NJCAA for JUCO guys, NAIA if they got anything out there.
Right.
I'm for it. I'm all for players making money off their likenesses, because that was the issue.
Yeah.
First half.
This is a big win. This is an absolute win.
And the schools don't have to pay. It's just saying that the athletes can now
receive money from outside.
Receive money.
And we talked on the first episode. We talked about the school shouldn't have to pay, because then big name schools are going to run away with all the talent, and then your FCS schools.
Well, and on a bigger level than that, the non revenue generating sports, non-revenue sports, those athletes can now still get their partial scholarships. So track and field, women's volleyball.
All basketball, track and field.
Baseball, a lot of those guys, you may have one or two guys on the full, a lot of those guys are on partials. And it safeguards a lot of guys. But I do feel more so now than ever, coaches should now start taking the John Calipari approach where you make sure that these guys are taking finance classes, personal accounting classes, and then just being honest about it. If you're an athlete in school under 25, you're trying to go pro in some type of league and get a paycheck. It just is what it is. If you're an athlete that's good enough to get paid for your craft, it don't matter how old you are. You want to be compensated for it. So I'm all for it.
So do they give Reggie Bush his Heisman back?
They should give him back the
I
Heisman.
think so.
They should give USC back them Pac-12 or no Pac-10. Pac-10 title.
Yeah,
back when it was a Pac-10. Because it's always happened. I'm not gonna name institutions.
I'm sure Cam Newton. That was a big thing with him.
Yeah,
they didn't take his Heisman though. I don't think.
Nah, with him, it was they saying that his father sold him to Auburn. It came down to Mississippi State and Auburn.
Okay,
and I think
they had the similar thing with Michael Orr too, though.
Yeah, it's one of those deals. It is an arm race in college athletics. Like I tell people all the time. My second to last coaching job was at a K-8 school, and I felt pressure to win on the junior high level. It's getting to a point to where even Pop Warner athletics and sports on the amateur level is no longer pure.
Right. So I think there's good talking about like Pop Warner and youth football. I think there should be guidelines there. I think some of the worst coaches I've ever seen are coaches who are just dads who played football years ago, and they're like. You remember the bull ring? Yeah,
bull in the ring, yeah.
73 comes out and hit the guy in the middle, like that's just concussions waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And now, granted, when we were younger, we didn't know how bad that was.
Right.
But now we know how bad concussions can affect people.
Yeah.
I have a couple friends in the Army who have suffered enough that their personality has changed.
Yeah.
One guy, it's fun to be around. He's always in a good mood. After a few concussions, he's all battling depression and anxiety and all this.
Yeah, it rewires your brain.
I don't particularly care for people who are like, oh, well, they're athletes paid millions of dollars. They should be able to get hit like this. Like, yeah, they're athletes. and they're trying to provide for their family just like you are.
Right.
They play a sport and get paid more of it because of their talents, yeah.
Right.
But I promise you, he works. This is what gets me. This man will work more in the gym and on the football field than you'll working in the plants or whatever you do from day. You sit in an office from 9 to 5 every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
This man is on a football field in the middle of the heat, practicing his skill. You know.
Yeah, because the thing is as an athlete, your body is an asset.
It's not a walk in the park.
Yeah, for lack of a better way of saying it, being an athlete is I'm not gonna say a slave. You're basically like an indentured servant, but you're a very well compensated
entertainer.
Yeah, you're well compensated. Like indentured. Because the thing is like you have to play, not so much injured, but you got to play hurt.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to play for an injury depending on the situation.
I mean, the risk is always there.
You have to fight to keep your job from other people. Like
and at the collegiate level, if you get hurt, there's nothing you fall back on.
They hold the scholarship over your head. They, like with a piece of string. Something that I've told some of the athletes I used to work with, and some that's on a D1 level. I said, hey, every year you got to fight to not only keep your job, but you got to beat out JUCO transfers, other D1 transfers, as well as JUCO and incoming high school seniors are going to be freshmen. They all coming for your spot. I used to tell athletes, if you want to make it professional, you have to be willing to take somebody else's job, and it's just like that in the real world.
Oh, absolutely. That's everywhere you go.
But yeah, you got to work out 2 to 4 times a day, trying to recover as fast as possible, hoping to be just a hair better than the next.
Which is, I think this ruling is an excellent thing because Southeastern is, it's a Division I school, but it's a pretty small Division I school, and even then,
mid-major,
these kids are waking up at 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, working out before they go to class, showering, going to class till lunch, working out again, going back to class, and then going to practice at night.
Yeah.
And then traveling basically every other weekend out of state to these, schools that are 10, 12, 16 hours away.
And that's not counting film time in the classroom.
Exactly.
That's not counting treatment.
Yeah.
And then
and then you still got study hall, things like that.
Study hall, and then depending on your body type and your position, cafeteria time.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my friends, he played for a Sunbelt school, and if the coaches wanted you to gain weight, they monitored your cafeteria swipes. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's essentially you put your body through hell.
Absolutely.
I think we talked about it one time off air. When we were still playing together, I was working out 3 to 4 times a day.
Yeah.
On top of eating like crap all day.
I'm about to start hitting 2-a-days come tomorrow.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's you build your body up year round to better your life, only to tear it down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And once you feel everything once you hit 40, 41.
And now these kids that do that, heaven forbid somebody gets hurt, they get endorsed. They have a little bit of money to fall back on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know they haven't discussed on who's going to pay what, how much. I'm sure they're going to come up with some sort of cap on it.
I wouldn't even cap it because as long as the schools don't have to pay.
You wouldn't, but I would assume the NCAA would.
Yeah.
And I assume the NCAA is going to take a good portion of it themselves.
Yeah, because the thing is
because when let's say Joe Burrow gets endorsed, Joe Burrow gets his, LSU gets theirs, the SEC will get theirs, and then the NCAA will get theirs.
See, but the thing is, my whole thing is if they do it like that, I think it'll be a moot point because it's like essentially because like. If an NFL team pays a kid or NBA, MLB, the governing body isn't taking anything. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Just let your local and federal government take their taxes and keep it moving because you can't.
Yeah, they're already trying to get all this stuff taxed.
Because it's like
nothing's been discussed. And some guy the other day was
you
like,
can't cap an endorsement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I put it like this: look at where high school guys sign for any sport for colleges, and look at what shoe company sponsored. But like we had a kid here locally who went to a Power 5 school. That's an Under Armour school. Mm-hmm. High school was sponsored by Under Armour, and that started to happen because of the summer circuit with basketball. But shoe companies dictate a lot. If Nike wants to give Joe Burrow $500,000, let them get the whole $500,000. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you. I'm not sure because football works different than the other sport.
Yeah.
I'm going to use video games as an example. 2K isn't the only basketball game. EA isn't the only basketball game. There's a competition for that, and the NBA allows that. The NFL doesn't do that. The NFL only allows Madden. There's no 2K.
Yeah.
There's no other team there's no other game that you know,
because
they are very corporatized and they are very stern on how they make money and how people under them make their money.
Yeah, well, that only happened because 2K Sports and Visual Concepts were a huge threat to EA Sports.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because NFL 2K5 is the best pro football simulation ever made.
100%.
And they applied pressure to get the exclusivity tag. Because NBA 2K was such a great product at one point, it forced NBA Live to cancel themselves. And they've tried to come back several times and they keep canceling the product.
Could you imagine if Madden had, or if the NFL had like a video game that had a franchise mode that's as deep as 2K? Like I'm playing 2K19 now, and this is probably the first basketball game I've played in years. And like your franchise mode is like ridiculous.
And the thing is, this year's NBA 2K actually isn't even the best 2K. NBA 2K is so big, it's its own community.
Yeah.
And there's actually been complaints. Like 2K20 is essentially a copy and paste of 2K19.
Is it?
Yeah. So while it's still immersive, but with Madden, once they got the exclusivity tag, it caused a product to go down. It's like,
oh yeah, of course.
Like us being 90s and early 2000 kids, there are a lot of different football and basketball simulations. Yeah. NFL Game Day, Quarterback Club, Madden, 2K. NFL 2K. On the basketball side, Kobe Bryant had a couple of games. You had NBA Live, you had 2K. And then with the college titles, you had 2K,
Madness.
March Madness. You know what I'm saying? You had all these different types of games. And now because we only have one basketball and one football, and we don't even have baseball simulations anymore. You know what I'm saying? So, so with the NCAA case, I'm gonna be happy because that means we'll get.
It's even with the rules, depending. This is an absolute great thing for college athletes. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll get the NCAA football game back. That's what I'd be super psyched about.
That's all I need to want.
Maybe I think what they might do is do only the FBS schools, because I don't know if they're going to want to spend money on some of the FCS schools. But
the last 2 gens back on the PS2 era, they had all 300 D1 schools, so you could play with a school from the SWAC. So you could either do the Bayou Classic or you can do the Egg Bowl, whatever you wanted to play. You could do
that would be great.
Red River Robbery.
I'm not going to get my hopes up.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But because the NCAA community takes care of updated rosters anyway, just like the last NCAA. So, yeah.
All right. So that is going to conclude episode 2 of the On the Fence podcast. I think we broke down and got some great content, and it's going to be a successful episode. And I want to hit it on the fun run again. Like I said, it's November 21st from 3 to 6. It's before the SLU Nichols game. Registration up until 11:15 is going to be $20, and you get a free T-shirt with early registration. And then after that, it'll be $25. We'd really appreciate it if you guys came out and showed support for Lions Connected and support for Southeastern students with intellectual disabilities. And we will get back to y'all as soon as possible with episode 3.